Hi, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I don't know why, but I got itchy beard today. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I washed it. I swear to God I did. Hello, how are you? Today's a big show. It's Monday. You guys know I love Mondays. I love to talk to the Beard Show, and we have an exciting guest today coming on, which is fantastic for me. I love meeting people. I don't know if you guys get this about me, but I mean, for the most part, I just get locked in this little room all day long, and I mean, we work on Discord and stuff, but I like talking to people. It's enjoyable to me. So I really look forward to this. It's like I get out of my cave for a second. It's wonderful. So a couple things here. One, we're completely over the sickness, or at least I am. Jody is kind of down now too, and I'm kind of trying to distance myself from people in real life right now, just to make sure I don't like spread it or anything. But we were down, man. We were down. It was like 7 to 10 days, but we're back to work, which is awesome. Today we are working on Love is Love, Book 3, His Only Defense, which is fun. And that's a Tantor project. And then we're going to be working on an E.M. Lindsay book next, which I'm excited about. I love E.M. Lindsay. She's fantastic. And if I remember right, that's actually the start of a new series. It's a hockey series. It's called Breakaway, if I remember correctly. It's the Sin Bin Book 1. So we're going to be working on that. And yeah, we're just like getting back in the fold here and everything else. Oh, Susan says hubby and her have had COVID. I'm pretty sure I had COVID. I didn't take a test because I don't work for like a company where I got to take a test, but it had all the signs. And I think we've had it a couple times in the last few years, and it kind of felt the same as like real high temperatures and shit. That sucked ass. But anyways, that's what we got going on here. I do have gigs this weekend, so I'm going to be working a little bit on Friday, but then I'm going to be out running a festival, and then Saturday I'm going to be out all day out of town. So not a lot of work in Discord over the weekend here. We will be back in on Sunday, I do believe. And next week is kind of business as normal as well. So it's good to be back. I'm going to bring on my guest here, and well, I don't think anybody needs an introduction to this lady. She's been around for quite a while. I give you Anna Ashley. Hello, Anna. How are you?
Hello, hello.
Whoop whoop. So
Hello.
you were telling me that you live in the mountains. Where exactly do you live? Where are you at right now?
Kind of. So I kind of split my life between the UK and Portugal, and I live in central Portugal where there's a big reservoir and it's quite mountainous. So I live on a hill, and I am literally a 15-minute drive from a city. So 15 minutes in the car, and I am in the city, in civilization. 15 minutes in the car, and I'm in the middle of nowhere with a beautiful view of the lake, which at the moment, considering the amount of fires we've got around here, is very, very essential. But yeah, there's nothing around here. We've got one neighbor. But we see houses, we see lights at nighttime, we see lights. So we know there's civilization around here. But mostly there's nothing, just nice lake views.
Well, how did you get to why do you split time between Portugal and the UK? What's going on there?
Because I'm Portuguese. My boyfriend is English. I moved to the UK a long time ago for various reasons. So I've lived there, so I'm settled there. I live there. All of my affairs are there. And a little while ago, he decided that he wanted to buy a holiday home in Portugal. So we did it, and that was it. So since COVID. I took a year out of work just as COVID was starting, and so I ended up spending more time here during COVID and did my whole career break here and in Portugal, and never went back to work. So I've actually been spending a lot more time here than in the UK. In the UK, we don't have a view. We have a small two-bedroom apartment that leads onto a cemetery on one side and someone else's garden on the other side. So yes, it's a lot nicer here.
So you didn't take a break from writing. You took a break from another career. What was your career path?
Yeah.
What were you doing in your outside life there?
I had a really fun job. So I worked for a large retailer, which is one of the oldest retailers in the UK. that has a reputation for being really good to the employers and or the employees. And my job was to look after people. So I was literally on the other side of the phone, listening to people as they told me their problems. You know, whether they had financial problems, emotional, anything, and just try to work it through with them and offer solutions and just offering support. And I also got to visit people that retired from the business if they were over 80 years old, 80, not 8, 80. I got to visit them at home, obviously before COVID, and that was so much fun. My job in that department started as doing mostly those visits, and it was so much fun because I got to meet so many people that worked in the UK during the Second World War, and they have so many memories. And the amount of stuff that I found out, it was amazing. So much knowledge there. It was very, very interesting. So yeah, I really enjoy that job, but I like
You
writing more.
you were like a we call them guidance counselors in school here. Every school has a guidance counselor, and that's like if you're having a hard time in school and all that. And they also help you get into college too. But what their job is like if you're depressed or anything, like you go to the guidance counselor, and they're like the school psychologist, and they help you work it out. That's it sounds like you're doing something similar now. The only I'm not from the UK. I don't know if you know that or not. And the only real show I can think of, because you said a major retailer, I think of Are You Being Served? With they have like the men's department and the women's department in that show, and they're like selling clothes and shit. Is it that kind of thing? Were you like a major retailer selling clothing?
I think so. That's before my time. I have seen a few clips, so I think yes, it is one of those department stores where you can find clothing, furniture, all sorts of anything that you need. You'll find in there. So they do all of your fittings, and they've got like royal warrants. So they'll go to the Queen's house and they'll do their carpets and curtains and things like that. So it's that kind of department store.
I,
Um,
I think you just
yeah.
called me. I think you just called me old, which I appreciate very much. The we,
No,
we
no,
we
as in because I moved. So hold on, let me save this. Let me save this. I moved to the UK when I was 20.
I get it. No, we watched it on PBS is where
So
we
I have a
watched
whole
it.
childhood with that stuff.
When Jody and I were young, we would sit around the apartment smoking things we probably shouldn't smoke and watching PBS because we were broke as fuck. So we had like four channels, and that was one of them. So we would sit around, be like, "This is hilarious, man," and that's. But Are You Being Served was a fantastic show. Um, I got it. I have so many questions here. And thank you, by the way. You're being very but before I get into any of them, and we're going to talk about Portugal a little bit as well, because I'm really kind of interested in that. That sounds lovely. I, over the course of the last few years, I've been very selective about some of the work that I take on. Not all. Sometimes I'm a whore for money, but for the indie clients that I brought on, I've
Aren't we
been
all?
Oh my God, yes, I have to be. I mean, and I can't, I don't have the privilege of being able to read an entire book or an entire series or anything like that sometimes before I select a project. When an indie project, such as you're an indie author. You're not hiring me
Mhm.
through Tantor or any of the other publishing companies, you're hiring me on your own. And a lot of times my review process of it is me, my wife, or my lovely assistant, Tracy. One of us will take a look at the book. We'll take a look at the first chapter and we'll just scroll through briefly, making sure that it doesn't look like it's poorly edited. We'll make sure that the subject matter is something that I'm willing to take on, and basically that it's well written. That's all I'm looking for. I don't have the time to get into a lot of details beyond that. So it's a lot of guesswork. We've gotten pretty good at making an educated guess as far as what we want to take on and what we don't. In this instance, when you approached me, I knew who you were. Um, and immediately I'm like, well, she's cool. I think this is going to be good. But I still did a double take just to check the book. It's always a pleasant surprise to me when I get to actually working on the project. It's always a pleasant surprise when I'm like, holy shit, this is great. It's not just like, man,
Oh,
this is an average project, but like, this is really well written. You are very good at what you do. I
Oh my
I
God.
at this I don't need, I've said it 1,000 times on air. I don't need to kiss people's ass at this point. I'm not short on work, but man, it's such a pleasant surprise when I get like to work on something that's really just well written, well goddamn done. Thank you so much. Um,
Oh
were
my
you
God. You know what? I really needed this today. It's been a Monday and I really needed this today.
Cheers to that. Me
Carry
too.
on. Please carry on.
Well, the fact is, you are obviously a pro at what you do. You're incredibly good. With your writing career, you obviously had another larger career going on. Were you writing the entire time? I mean, how did you get into this? How did you start, and where did you decide to jump into it with?
I so when I started doing this job, so I've worked for that company since for well, I worked in the company for about 13 years, and I got this particular job. I worked lots of different jobs because you can hop around and do lots of different things, which is brilliant because you get lots of experience. Not all of the jobs were great, and when I got the job that I ended up doing, I had to move. So I moved from where I was living in the east of England all the way down south. So my sister was living in the east, my boyfriend was living in the east, and I had to move all the way down south on my own. So I ended up spending a lot of time on my own reading, and because people were working, it wasn't feasible to always travel every weekend because it was a 3.5 hour each way, to do it the weekend when everybody else is also traveling in that direction. In the summer, it's impossible because everybody goes down south for. Actually, in the summer was all right because I was doing it the opposite way, so it was okay. So I ended up doing a lot of reading, and at some point I came across MM accidentally. I was actually reading one of Sloane Kennedy's series that starts as MF, and then I think it's book three that is MM, and I didn't know, so I started reading because I enjoyed the other books, and I was like, oh, there's two guys in this, so that's how it started. And the Kindle starts recommending. And then it was just like reading book after book after book, and that's how I stumbled across the genre and started reading. And at some point, I don't know what made me think about writing. I just thought about doing it and started doing a little bit of research. And at the time, I came across a publisher that shall not be named that was had a project going on, and I pitched an idea that was part of that project that was accepted, but it had a word count, and I thought that my word count was going to it was going to surpass what they wanted. So I pulled out of that and decided to self-publish. And so when I started, I just never stopped, and that was it. So I was doing it quite often because I was on my own down in the south of England, bored. When I wasn't working, I was doing that. I was writing, and then just carried on. Yeah, and the less because things changed at work, with being more efficient and not traveling as much. The more we stayed at home, the more time I had to write, until it got to a point where I thought, oh, I kind of like want the shift to go more the other way, and that was it.
There's
And
got
then
to
one
be,
day,
well, there's got to be more to this because certain things. I'm going to use one that's come up recently in my career. Show don't tell. I'm sure you're familiar as a writer with that concept.
yeah.
Is something that you do incredibly well. Other things, character development, actually creating a character arc that goes from beginning to end. And I trust me, I know we're not making Shakespeare here, but at the same time, we really care about our characters. Me as a narrator, I care about them immensely. I try and actually be the characters that I'm portraying. These kinds of things you were doing incredibly well at a very high level. There was no,
Mhm.
are you saying there was no education? Were you not reading books on writing, anything like that to figure this out? Or did this all just come intuitively into your massive hair? She has gorgeous hair, by the way, everybody. She was showing it off to me earlier. She was just like, look at my hair. Did it all just drop in there naturally? Or did you read a book on this? Did you watch a YouTube series? How did you learn how to do it?
No, actually, no, I didn't. I literally had the idea for the story, and I typed. I looked up on the internet to see if there was any kind of structure to a story, because by reading, I knew that there were points in the book that there would be a sex scene. There were points in the book where there would be the oh shit moment, and then things would get resolved. And I thought there must be some kind of structure to this. So I looked it up, and there was a nice, beautiful spreadsheet that someone created. And I thought, oh, if I follow these kind of like points in my story, I must be doing something, I will be following what I should be doing. And that's how it kind of started. And I actually, my first editor wasn't a very good experience because of things that happened, and he didn't actually do a very good job with my first book. But no one has actually said anything about the structure of the book or the characters or anything that made me think that that part was not right. I've never really. I mean, I have a lot of craft books, but apparently there's like this second step after you purchase them that where you have to read them, and I haven't quite got to that bit yet. So
That's
behind
fantastic.
me, there's a whole shelf of craft books that needs to be read. What I do is I have attended a lot of conferences, and I listen to now, not in the beginning, but now I listen to a lot of podcasts, and when people are talking about craft, I pay attention. And I have read a couple of books on writing, but mostly it's just what comes to me. I think personally, I've always had a good way of putting myself in other people's shoes. I always feel very much. I'm very empathetic. I can't stand to feel someone suffering. Which is, I think, one day, if I ever become a parent, I'll be a terrible parent because I could not stand to see a child cry. My niece, seeing my niece crying in pain whenever she got hurt was just like, no, please get better. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I digress because I never talk to people. So
People are talking about your first book. Looks like, well,
yes.
actually, they're mentioning a number of them here. What was your first book? What was the name of it?
So my first book was under a pen name called Anna Newfolk, and it was called Made in Portugal. And I then because uh, the packaging and the way it was all done wasn't quite right. I then changed my pen name to Anna Ashley, and I thought at the time that I might run both pen names side by side and have one pen name that would do a bit more like European kind of stories, and then I realized actually they're all the same: found family, the grandparents and the uncles and the cousins and the friends that all get in there, in small towns and all of that stuff. It's all the same, it's just different locations. So what I did was, once I had and I actually set up with my first series, which was the Chesterfield, How to Catch a Prince and How to Catch Everything. I then republished that book with the new titles, new covers, and I retitled it Home Again. I think the fact that those first books had um, made in Portugal, made in Manhattan, made in New York, made in Lisbon were not the right titles for the books. So
Oh.
I republished them, and I fixed them as well because one of them was like a short story that I published first, and then it I needed to finish that story, so I ended up merging them in the second version to make, to put them together. So I think it now, in the second life, it all fits in together a lot better. So yeah, so they're still out there. I'm still
Excellent.
very proud of them. And I still have a paperback copy of each of the versions of all of the books. So that's my top shelf is all of my books, all of the different variations of the cover.
They other people are talking now. That isn't the Escort series. That's a different series, correct?
Escort, I don't have an escort series.
Somebody had mentioned that in here. I'm just scrolling through some of the comments here. You're very popular. People are just chatting away in the comments here.
Oh,
And yeah. Now, how did you? There's a little series that circles around a bar that we've been working on for quite some time. And when I say we, I'm talking about narrators.
Yes,
I say that it's the series that keeps narrators in business at this point, Vino and Veritas. How did you get into that one?
yes. Well, once again, it was lockdown, and someone actually put up some information about it on an author group, and I thought, well, why not? You know, at the time I would do everything that year. I would do everything to be part of anything that would meant that I could get to April 2021 and give my notice to my job. And I thought,
Hmm.
well, this is a project that someone can, you know, that someone else is managing, someone who knows what they're doing. And I want to be part of something like that. The idea seemed really good. And I thought, well, let me do it. So I applied for it, and then I waited and waited and waited and waited and waited until I was given the okay to go ahead and be part of it, and it was great. It was great, and it's still one of my favorite um, stories. I really do. I really enjoy the research for that story, and I wish that one day I'll have to go to Vermont and I'll have to try um, actual Vermont maple syrup and maple cream and all things maple. Um, but yeah, I had loads of fun um, writing that story.
No, that's yours was a. I've only read three of them. But to be, it's a joke that it's constantly running in here. I don't read much in the genre unless people pay me to. But I think I've been paid to read three of those now. And I had great fun with yours. You did a great job on it. And it was a great introduction to you. Now I'm not sure entirely if Tantor and that connection where all of us narrators are recording the Vino and Veritas series through Tantor. I'm not sure if that's a connection that brought you to me. I don't know. But if it is one or the other, thank you so much. I'm not sure how that worked out. I kind of remember us talking about it now, but I don't really. So, however it worked out is great with me. Um,
No, it was actually it was a happy coincidence because I'd already decided to approach you for Stillwater, and I think I was going to approach you, and then I because we put suggestions for the narrators that we wanted for Vino and Veritas, and then one day I can't remember if I'd already approached you for Stillwater or not, and I just got a message from Serena because Tantor was in control of everything. And I got a message from her, and she said, "Will you be okay if John Solo narrates Stronghold?" And I was like, "Hell yes." I am more than okay. Go ahead, fine, do it. And so I was like, yeah, this is perfect because obviously then both books were quite came out quite close to each other. So
mhm.
it was brilliant. It was meant to be.
Well, it brought a smile to my face in a number of ways. One, I prefer now. I work dual narrations, but I much prefer, if I possibly can, to narrate a book myself. I just feel much more connected to the characters, and I enjoy it more. I enjoy the process. I'm working on a dual now, and it's not a horrible thing, but I prefer narrating myself. And one of my particular skill sets is I can do different voices. That's all of us have our different skill sets. I'm good at that. There's really no need to do a dual narration. I was so happy because I've worked on a number of other Vino and Veritas books where I needed to do a dual narration, and they were cool, they were fine, but I got a big
Yeah.
smile on my face. I was like, oh, I get to do this one on my own. Fucking a, sweet, excellent. That always makes me feel better, and I have a much better time in the booth when I'm doing it that way. So with Portugal, now you say you're obviously from Portugal. I've never been in I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Okay, I've been overseas twice over across the pond there, but I've never been. It's in Spain. Is it right around there in that area? I don't really. I mean, the south. I'm not.
Be
I
careful now. Be
I
careful
I
now.
I failed geography. Okay. I'm assuming knowing the little bit that I do know about Portugal, I'm assuming that you guys are going through some pretty hot weather right now. Am I correct in that
Yes,
regard?
yes, we
Is
are. Yeah.
excellent. Is that the reason
hmm
for the fires that you had talked about?
Yes, yes, we are. We're going through. I mean, I think um, we are going through a really, really hot summer like we haven't had in a long time. 2 years ago, we had a very hot summer. Then the next winter, it rained so much that last year it was like there barely any fires. And this year it's been horrendous. Like the heat has been, we don't get, I mean, I work in Celsius. I don't know Fahrenheit, but we don't really get like 40, 42 degrees. That doesn't happen in Portugal. It never happened when I was growing up. And
Hmm.
now 38 degrees is more or less a standard on a daily basis. It's very hot. So there's a lot of fires that start naturally, also a lot of fires that don't start naturally. At the moment, I think the ones that are currently burning, and there's a couple not far from here on either side of us that are still burning. One of them we could actually see last night. We could see the glow from the flames, and it's all the way on the other
Oh,
side of
wow.
the lake, so we're safe. But that's still burning. The other one went out, but then another one started this afternoon, and the smoke just comes this way because it was so windy. And we just had to close all of the windows and everything because it just smelled of smoke. It was horrendous, and I don't think those started naturally because it hasn't been the last few days that hot. So I think those were man-made.
Oh,
So sadly, there's a lot of that around as well. So, and been a huge fire up in further north, and I was reading on the news on the internet that apparently the amount of energy released in that fire, which has got like 100-kilometer diameter or whatever, is the equivalent of 25 Hiroshima bombs.
oh
So
my
that's
God.
a lot of energy released by just one fire. There was like 1,500 firemen involved in trying to fight it. I don't know if it's out yet or if they're still fighting it. Because I don't watch a lot of TV. Usually, my mom messages me and she says, "There's a fire. Go watch the news." And then I turn the TV on. But we also have an app. There's this brilliant app that has the map, and you go on it, and it's in real time. You can see where the fires are and what status they have. And earlier on today, my boyfriend actually could track on Flight Tracker the airplanes because of the reservoir in the lake. They use this area to fill up with water to then fight the fires. So today, the whole day, all we could hear was helicopters around, and he could track the airplanes on flight radar, which is quite it's interesting, but I wish it was something that we didn't have access to, that we didn't have to see. But that's just hopefully we'll have a wet winter and next year will be a bit better.
I go through phases where I will, I allow myself to get sucked too much into world events sometimes. For instance, I don't hang around a lot on Facebook anymore. A couple of years ago, I was on every day a lot. And when I found myself scrolling, look at that. Now I'm pissed. Scroll. Oh, you right there.
Yeah.
When I found myself doing that, I eventually, for my mental health, I just tapped out. And I get on Facebook enough now, and Trace helps me out with it too, which is wonderful. But I get on enough now to basically, I never find myself scrolling. I only go to my group. That's it. It's like that's
Hmm.
all I do. I do the same thing with news reports, YouTube, that sort of thing. I'll go through a period of time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to catch up on the world for about a week, and then I'm pissed off again, and then I just decide, it's not in my control. I'm just going to stay away from it for a while. Do you find yourself? Are you a news watcher? Do you get into that at all?
No, so in the UK, we used to watch the news around dinner time or after dinner. But in the UK, the news lasts 30 minutes and that's it. In Portugal, they're 2 hours long, so I don't turn the TV on for the news because it gets on my nerves that they're so long. So I tell my mum to tell me what's going on. I tend to read stuff online. So we look at Apple News at the Apple News feed, and it will tell us more or less what goes on in the UK because obviously we've got a vested interest in knowing what's going on out there. And then we just find out through people. I On Facebook, I make sure to go onto groups that I want to see information from, and I pick the highlights, the notifications that I want to see, all of those notifications, and then those are the ones I see first. And if I think that I haven't seen a post from a particular group, and mostly those would be author groups that I follow that will have good information and craft information that is good to know. I will go back and check if Facebook hasn't defaulted back to highlights or something else. So I tend to see only what I want to see, and occasionally I see posts from people. So I do go through the notifications, but I very rarely actually scroll down the feed. I just look at the notifications and see what's important and what's not important.
Mm-hmm.
And my PA tends to do a lot of posting for me for engagement, and then I pop into my group and I say hi, and I probably should do a lot more of that than I do, but I tend to just find it's quite exhausting to to go in and to have to think about what to say and what not to say, and I don't know. And I just think no, I'll put my energy into something else. And if people get more words and more books out of that energy, that's probably better.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm with you. I wish that I could still do that. I know I miss notifications, and I've explained to the crowd a number of times. Basically, when I'm doing videos, that's when you're going to see me, and that's when we'll interact, and I'll read your comments, and I'll respond to them, and all that. And that's just the way I got to do it. I wish that I could be more mentally stable enough to be able to handle the notifications and such anymore. But also, I mean, I think a lot of us are like ADHD at this. I'm very sure I am, and I'm just based on my personal self. I can't take medications and shit. I can't do it. So this is my way to deal with it. I meditate every day and I don't look at notifications, and then I tend to be a lot better for it. Um, you are still working on the Dads of Stillwater series. Is that correct? I know you talked to
hmm
me just
yep.
recently about book two. Are you the type of author that's working on several different projects at once? Are you bouncing around between projects, or do you just kind of focus on one series and you roll with that and then you go to the next one?
So it depends. So with my first series, I kind of like just worked on that, and then I ended up fitting in Stronghold, and I had a newsletter serial at some point, so that fits in between. With Dead of Stillwater, I'm currently thinking of what's gonna come next because I've got so many ideas and so many other things that I will also want to do that I'm trying to think of what comes next. At the moment, I'm working on a book that will be finished within the next couple of weeks. And the second book in Stillwater is coming back from the editor next week. So you'll be getting it shortly after once it's finished, once I go through those edits. And then I'll be thinking about that release date. And then I'm traveling a lot in September. I've got a couple of conferences, and then I'll be thinking about what to do in October. And I think I'll probably go to book three in Stillwater, and then maybe work on a different project, which might be a project of three books that I'll write consecutively. But then I've got something else in the works that might need to squeeze in. So I don't know. I don't know because I'm one of those people that I can write a book really fast, but I spend a lot of time thinking about the story, thinking about the characters in my head, and I used to hate that about myself, that I was a last minute kind of person, and I thought that I needed to change my process. I needed to change something because it's so stressful to get to that final week when you need to send the book to the editor, and you've got like half a book written, and you think, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? But that's when the book comes out. That's when everything comes out. So I can't fight the process. That's just who I am. But by then, I've already thought so much about the characters and the setting, and I've done my research and everything that I'm ready to go. So I think I'll probably, I don't know, work on book three, to give people three types of single dads. And I think book three is quite exciting as well because it's going to be another different one. All of my books in the series seem to be all very different to each other as well. I don't. I seem to, even though obviously all books are different tropes, but the even within like the feel of the book is different. So that means that I'm never bored when I'm writing, but I think I might still then include something else in between. I don't know. I don't know where
I
my
I
brain will
lo-
take me.
I love your description of your process and being backed into a corner, which seems to be my life a lot. I have a lot of books lined up. I try not to book myself out more than 3 months in advance if I can, just because I need to be flexible sometimes to be able to move something around. Like I just got sick, shit happens. I don't want to have to shift a year's worth of projects out. That gets to be very stressful. But the backing for me, when I back myself into a corner like that, I tend to perform better. And it's for a number of reasons, but one of which is I tend to trust my reactions. For me, now, and I think there has to be something like this that goes on with a writer. I've talked to a number of you at this point, and I think there is. For me, the honest reaction, acting is just simply reacting honestly in an imaginary scenario. That's all it is. And for me, when I'm backed into a corner and I know my ass has got to be sitting here for 6 hours today, recording and nothing else, which is a fairly long day in a recording booth. Um, I've got to be here. I've got to do it. I tend to trust my reactions more because I know I just need to keep moving. I just, keep swimming. I just got to. I have to hit a deadline and I got to move. And I tend to get more honest reactions out of myself as a result of that. There has to be something like that that goes on with you as well, because I
Yeah.
know I can state unequivocally your characters react honestly. It's an amazing feature of your writing, which I really enjoy. It makes my job so much easier. Oftentimes in your books, by a third of the way through the book, I'm already reacting as the character reacts, and then the line comes up, and I'm like, "Oh, damn, she got it perfect." I'm right on board with you. It's absolutely excellent. That honesty of reaction, though, is one of my favorite parts about what you just described. Do you find yourself like that too, where you're rolling along, then afterwards you look back and you're like, "I made the right decision, made the right decision, made the right decision." I'm not even sure if what I'm saying makes sense.
Yes, yes, it makes sense. It makes sense. I know that lots of people, lots of authors will say that they don't like reading their books. I love reading my books. I write for myself as well. If I didn't like reading my books, then I wouldn't be a good writer, I think. So there are times when so I always have this moment where I read the and I'm editing or or I've just finished writing the book and I'm thinking this is shit. This is the worst thing I've ever done.
Yep, I
And I'm
know.
thinking, what was I thinking? I'm missing everything. What is this? And then I read it back and I'm like, no, it's not. This is all right. This is all right. And then it goes through cycles of thinking that it's bad and then thinking it's really good. And there will be moments when I'm like, this is the absolute perfect moment. And then times when I think this could have been better. And I think it's where you improve as a writer, because if you think that everything that you've done now is perfect, then you're never going to improve. So I know from my first series to now the things that I needed to fix, and hopefully some of those things I fixed, or I'm fixing in this series. If I pick up any new things that need fixing, that means I'm working on my craft and I'm improving, and those will get fixed in the next one. But those will be me things. The reader hopefully will just get an enjoyable read, and they might not notice anything. They might just enjoy reading it. So that might just be me, looking at what I do and what I'm writing, and wanting to make it better. But yeah, I go through those cycles. But sometimes I'm reading something and I'm thinking, did I really write this? And because quite often it's written in that last moment, that final week, I totally have no memory of writing it.
Oh yeah.
It's like I'm reading it for the very, very first time, and I'm absolutely. If I was to stand in front of a jury, and I never have because I don't know the legal system in Portugal, UK, America, anywhere. If I had to sit in front of a jury and someone said, "Have you written this line?" I'd be like, "No," and just because I don't remember it.
I get it. I don't go back and listen to my work very often anymore at all. There was a time where I was editing my own work, a lot, so I would have to listen to everything I did. There were certain portions that I liked immensely. There was others that I didn't. I'm glad that I don't have to do that as much now at all. Occasionally, though, I will have to go back and reference. Just today, I had to go back and listen to a small portion of a book to get a voice that for some reason I didn't save in my voice files. And listening back to it, most oftentimes my reaction now is, well, that isn't that bad. Like, oh, I can see why that character reacted that way. Oh, wow, the emotion is really prevalent there. Where I get into trouble is if I have to go back and listen to something from 4 years ago or beyond, and that's where the only thing I can do is just apologize to myself. Like, dude, you're still learning. You got a lot better. That's the only thing I can. When you go back, do you go back and read any of your early work? Are you still pleased with that? I know you can see holes in it, but are you generally pleased with it? For me, I'm disgusted myself with mine.
Um, Both. I still very much love that first series, but at the same time, I think because it came so much from the heart, that first series, and there was so much of me, there's so much Portugueseness in that series, that it it's there's probably so many wrong things with it in terms of the structure and when things should happen or shouldn't happen. But to me, all of the feels are in there. All of the things that I want to read are in there. So it might be wrong, but it's right for me as a reader. And
Uncle,
and I think that to
uh, uh,
me to me
Uncle just
that's
said,
good.
"Don't you dare badmouth that series." That's what. And by the way, her and Tanya said when we were talking earlier about you're going back and reading your work and not sure about it, and Tanya said she says that. Then Lisa, Uncle, and I come in and tell her it's amazing, which you seem to definitely have a fan base as well. I will say that. Um, the
They're my three cheerleaders.
yeah, we all need them, don't we? Um, and
Yes, definitely.
yeah, thank you, by the way, for coming on. I appreciate this. I know that last time we had some situations happen where we couldn't quite make it work, and then you were on some sort of ultra secret Navy SEALs mission or some shit like that there for a minute. Um, but you've been a wonderful addition to our stable, me and the crew, because really I'm just kind of I'm like the tip of the ice. I'm just the tip. I'm the tip of the iceberg you see on top. There's a lot of people that make what we do happen. It's certainly not just me. And everybody absolutely adores your work on my crew. I really appreciate you. Um, but I know I've missed some comments here. And guys, I'm sorry. As always, I kind of try and focus on my guests. So I did miss some. If you could do me the courtesy when we get off the air, jump in and answer a few of the ones that I missed, that'd be fantastic in the Facebook group. We'll obviously be putting this out on YouTube here, hopefully in the next 24 hours if I do this right. And yeah, past that, thanks for coming all the way from Portugal. I don't remember ever having a guest call in from Portugal before, so I think that's a first.
I'm special.
Yes, in fact, you are. And you
No.
have lovely hair to boot.
Thank you. And thank you very much for having me.
No, 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 you're welcome. This is the easy part. All you got to do is wave bye to the camera. Have fun, guys. Thank you. Love you.